It is a miracle we made it to 2026. Who is so excited? 2025 needed to die. We're very grateful for her. Would not change one iota second of her and what she brought, but she needed to go. Okay. We're really excited that 2026 is here. And what comes with a new year is a wave of motivation. It's this surge after the holidays. You were in this lull and everything's moving slowly. You're eating whatever, you're drinking whatever, you're spending time with family. You're not really in this mentality that you want to set goals and get things done. But then the new year hits and you're like full-fledged ready to dive into action. And I don't even think it's like following a trend at this point. I think there is something about the way we are wired that when the new year hits, we just feel that surge of motivation. But I am determined today to help you not ride the wave of motivation, but to actually make a change to your lifestyle in a way that is sustainable and feels like you actually achieving your goals and that your life feels how you want it to feel. And you clicking on this episode tells me that you and I have a mind that works pretty similar, that when we set a goal, we think that we need to execute it perfectly in order to achieve said goal or to actually feel like our life is changing in the direction of what we want to achieve. But it doesn't work because it's not realistic. You're spending all of this time trying to achieve the goal in this state of frustration because you're so focused on getting it right, on getting it perfect. And your energy is looking towards what you've done wrong and punishing yourself for when you slip up and screw up. Inevitably, by the way, that's a very normal, inevitable thing that's going to happen. And that's all what we're going to be talking about today. But that you're not focusing on the positive. You're not focusing on all of the things that you're doing in order to go after your goal. And trying to achieve goals like this just doesn't work because it feels more like failure than success. And I don't know about you, but if I feel like I'm failing at something, that's going to lead me to want to quit so much more than if I focus on and feel like I'm succeeding at something, even if I'm not doing it 100% perfectly. And the other really real reason that this mentality doesn't work is the burnout, the inevitable burnout that happens when you are being mean to yourself and pressuring yourself and saying, I'm gonna go, 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 I'm gonna go. And going day after day and not like taking inventory of how you're feeling and not honoring yourself, and you're abandoning the way that you feel because you think that unless you get it perfectly correct that you're not good enough or you're not going to achieve anything. You will burn yourself out and you will spend it in these periods of high motivation and powering through, and then lulls that you're not doing absolutely anything. And then the motivation will spike again and you'll power through, and then it'll lull again. And you're not making genuine quality progress by doing that. You make progress when you do it in smaller, more realistic increments, but you do it consistently over time. And when you do it that way, you build self trust. When you are doing it in this, when you're trying to achieve a goal in this mentality of power through, and if I fuck up, that means that I am a fuck up and I failed and I'm not going to achieve this goal. You're destroying your self trust. And self trust is literally the most important ingredient for life, but also for achieving goals. If you don't trust yourself to achieve the goal, you're not going to be able to achieve the goal. But you have to build that self trust by showing up for what you said you were going to do. And when you are putting all of your eggs in the basket of perfection, and you obviously cannot reach that because we're not perfect people, you don't trust yourself. That's why this episode is all about debunking the myth of the perfect execution and what you can do to actually reach your goals without feeling like you have to wear yourself down in order to reach them. After you listen to this episode, you will be able to actually enjoy your time reaching your goals, which is what that annoying phrase, enjoy the journey, is always trying to tell us. But it feels so impossible to enjoy the journey when you're so hyper focused on what you don't have. You're hyper focused on lack, what you're doing wrong, and what you're trying to achieve, that you don't get to enjoy the process. You spend it in this state of frustration. So you're going to actually be able to enjoy the process process once we get through this conversation. You'll get to know yourself better because you're paying attention to your wants and your needs and your patterns. And who doesn't want to get to know themselves better? This is like one of the best ways to get to know yourself. Your confidence will skyrocket, I guarantee you, because you are going to learn to trust yourself because you are following through on what you said you were going to do. And you're actually gonna achieve your motherfucking goal because you are not equating perfection with success anymore. Do yourself a favor and make sure to subscribe to Wellish so you do not miss an episode. We are released at least once a week, up to thrice per week. You know, your girl is setting realistic goals in increasing the number of episodes produced, but the goal is thrice per week, but you will always get a Monday episode. You can count on that, guaranteed. And also make sure to help other people like-minded to you who need to live a little bit more Wellishly by rating, reviewing, liking the show, because it really does help get the show out to more people. Let's talk about what's going on in the thought palace, okay? Because what we do when we set a goal is we create this glorified image of what our life will look like once we achieve the goal. More so, we create the glorified image of what it will look like when we are executing that goal. We don't just choose an outcome. We create this movie-like version of ourselves that we play in our head that's living out the goal that we have set out. Not to mention that when we create this movie-like version of ourselves that we are like trying so hard to turn into, we think that we will reach our goals faster and get there in a more intense, quick way because we don't like who we are now and we want to set the goal to be better if we do it perfectly. Like, it logically makes sense that if you get it right more and you do it constantly and perfectly, that you will reach that goal quicker. So I think it's important to differentiate between us dreaming, because it's important that we have these fantasies and we think up what we want our lives to look like so we can then set the goals to go out and achieve the life that we really want to achieve. And it feels motivating and it feels hopeful. So that's all good. But it's when it crosses into this unhealthy habit territory. It's when we become obsessive over the fantasy and we need it to look like the image that we have inside of our head. And unless it looks like that image, we're not good enough and we need to achieve more and we need to be more perfect in order to have that achievement. It's like we're putting too much weight into the fantasy and not what's actually being executed. The glorified image has a few different elements that are at play here. The first thing is we imagine this future self that's different than who we are now. The version that we're picturing in our head walks on water. She doesn't get anything wrong. She doesn't second guess. She does things effortlessly. She wants to wake up at 5 a.m. She wants to meal prep and go to the gym, and she's able to speak confidently and never make an ass out of herself, and she's completely emotionally sound when she gets vulnerable. We have this image in our head of this version of ourselves that does everything perfect. And we've decided that that version of us is so different than who we are now, because the things that we want her to be are likely all of the things that you want to change about you. So in our fantasy, effort becomes our identity. Like, the amount of work that we put in order to become that person is where our identity lies, compared to earning our identity of who we want to become over time through repetition. And this image that we're creating inside of our head feels so good because it's this dopamine hit that you get without having to even do anything, just because you're thinking it up. And so it's intoxicating and it feels hopeful and it feels motivating. So we stay in this spiral of envisioning who we want to be because we get the dopamine hit without even having to go out into the world and do anything. But obviously that's not sustainable. It doesn't last. We get the dopamine hit, we realize that our life doesn't look like that, and now we're pissed and we're upset and we're guilty and we're shaming ourselves and whatever other feelings come with you trying to execute perfectly and not being able to achieve that. So you just aren't achieving anything that you actually want to. I think the second big thing that comes into play here when it comes to that glorified image is that we think that consistency is just going to come naturally. That it's just something that when you decide you want to achieve X goal, you're going to be able to consistently do it because you have the willpower to make that happen. It's like we picture ourselves perfectly locked in every day, crystal clear direction, stable motivation, completely emotionally regulated at all times, and that you're just racking in these results. Almost like life will just click into place and then stay there. But what do we know about life? There is always going to be ups and downs. There are going to be bad days. There are going to be hormones. There are going to be days when people treat you like shit and you go through periods of time that you have to heal from that. There's going to be days that you spontaneously get asked to do something fun and you're going to want to do that instead of doing what you said that you were going to in relation to your goal. There's gonna be times you're more mentally ill than others. There's gonna be times you're more tired than others. Real life is messy. Real life comes with highs and lows, and you have to be able to ride that wave. It's all about building the skill of riding that wave. But when real life interrupts, we automatically just take that as confirmation bias or proof that we can't achieve the goal that we said that we want to achieve, most likely because our self trust is so low in this area that we just think we're not worthy of it, or we're not dedicated enough, or we don't have the willpower, or nothing good ever happens for us. Whatever victim ass shit we're cooking up inside of our brain. But it's not that we're failing at the goal, it's that it doesn't look like the fantasy in our head. It looks like your real life. It's not going to look like the glorified image. The third thing that's at play when we're leaning too heavily on the glorified image is we assume that growth is going to feel empowering and it's not going to feel frustrating and uncomfortable and like something's wrong. When we hear about growth from anybody, any of the self improvement people, any random person on the internet, you read it in a book, you watch it on YouTube, you listen to it in a podcast, whenever we hear about growth, it sounds so revolutionary because there truly is no other way to describe it. When you are experiencing growth, it does feel profound. It does feel so exciting to feel yourself make that shift. So when you talk about it, when we hear people talk about it, they're using this big language. But the truth is, that is the end result. And it's not even an end result because it's always a process, but it's just a description of a feeling, is maybe a better way to word that, compared to it being this like glorified reality. Because the reality of growth is that it is uncomfortable. But we create this idea that like discipline is empowering and that it's never inconvenient. It's inconvenient to be disciplined. We think that healing is like this liberating, incredible soul leaving our body, where this incredible version of ourselves feeling, when it's actually pretty fucking destabilizing when you're healing because you're forging a new path. We think that growth is motivational and we'll be proud to show it off constantly when really it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable as fuck to show this new version of you and start behaving more in alignment with the version you are now, because as you grow, you're growing into your authentic self. And when you show your authentic self and when you show up differently in your life than you ever have because you're not living for other people anymore, it's vulnerable and it feels uncomfortable. We imagine the emotional reward will come as a result of us executing our goals perfectly. We think that if we execute them, we'll finally feel how we want to feel. But the truth is that growth often feels uncomfortable, and there's grief, and there's fear, and there's feelings of inadequacy, and there's self-doubt. That all is a part of the growth process before it ever actually feels gratifying. Those feelings, like the identity confusion and the frustration and the fear, those aren't a part of our vision in our head. Like, we're not incorporating that into the image that we're curating about this dream version of ourselves. So when those feelings come up, we perceive them as us doing something wrong. Another problem as well is we treat our perfect vision as proof of our worth. We're telling ourselves that this version is just innocently about success. No, I just want to get better at going to the gym. I want to be healthy. Maybe you're even bold enough to say, like, you want to change your body, or maybe you're innocently saying that you want to show up more emotionally regulated in your relationships and in your life. But the truth is, it all comes down to your deep rooted beliefs about yourself and about the world and about life. When we think we can execute perfectly, it signals to us that when I'm this version of myself, I will finally be good enough. You think people will finally respect you. You think you'll finally have all of your confidence. You think that your life will finally just be stable. And it puts such an emotional load on this glorified image because it's becoming this like self redemption arc. It's this proof you're executing it perfectly as a means to prove to yourself that you are who you believe yourself to be in your head, but you can't just believe it. You have to prove it to yourself through achievement, which, as you can imagine, when we can't execute it perfectly, when we don't achieve the goal, we internalize that as us being flawed or incapable or create another insecurity about ourselves. It becomes so much bigger than just like, oh, I couldn't achieve this nice little goal. It's like this personal label that we slap on ourselves. This more, you're adding more to these negative, deep rooted beliefs. And I, of course, can't help but mention that social culture reinforces this fantasy. We only see people's highlight reels. There's the that girl culture. We see all of the aesthetic routines. We listen to self-help that just makes discipline and or whatever feel like it's just that easy. We're only looking at before and afters. We're not seeing the during. So the glorified self wasn't something that was just cooked up by you. It was reinforced through all of this imaging that we're constantly receiving in the media. It's like socially scripted. We're performing this ideal version that actually truly doesn't even exist. I do want to make it clear that the glorified image isn't necessarily bad. It shows you what's important to you. It shows you what you want to achieve in life, what goals you want to set out to achieve. It's hopeful and it feels good, and you feel more capable and you can envision your life for yourself. Something that I really like listening to, like especially in regards to manifestation and stuff, is that glorified image you cook up in your head because it really is meant for you. It really is something that you can achieve. But what we're trying to accomplish today is understanding that you can achieve that goal. You are capable of achieving what you want, but it doesn't have to have perfect execution in order to have the goal. But the fact that imperfection is inevitable is not an excuse to give in to every feeling that causes you to behave imperfectly. You have to be on track with your goals more often than not in order to get the needle moving in the direction that you want to go. And you do that with the most important ingredient that comes with goal setting, and that is self trust. In order to stay on track and not fall back into old habits and patterns, you have to build self trust. And you build self trust the same way you build trust with any other person. You follow through on what you said you were going to do. You show up for yourself like you said you were going to. Most people think that discipline is about force. It's about making yourself get up and go do the thing that you said you were going to do. But true, sustainable, genuine discipline is about your relationship with yourself. A relationship with yourself is built in the same way that a healthy relationship is built with anybody else. It's built through compassion and consistency and honesty and boundaries. And when we rely on perfection, there's this unspoken strategy that if we can just execute perfectly, then we never have to face our humanity. We never have to face what is maybe imperfect about us. The problem with perfection is that it doesn't hold you accountable. If you feel like you have to maintain this perfect image all of the time, this perfect standard all of the time, you can never turn around and recognize where maybe you could improve or where maybe you have screwed things up because you're too terrified to look in the direction of something that might be less than perfect about you. But the thing with self trust is that it allows us to say that even though we're imperfect, we continue to show up for ourselves. We continue to have our own back despite whatever we fuck up about. And that self trust is built from repeated experiences of doing what you said you were going to do, even if motivation fades. And when you screw up, repairing that relationship with yourself. You build self trust by staying with yourself through the discomfort that you're experiencing when you don't want to go do what you said you were going to do, or when you screw up, or when you do something that isn't in alignment with how you want to behave or what your core values are. And being able to be compassionate with yourself and saying, your higher self deserves more than this. We are capable of achieving this. I know you feel like this right now. Maybe we don't go as intense. Maybe we make a little bit of an adjustment, but we have to follow through on what we said we were going to do, being with ourselves through that discomfort instead of completely abandoning our goal. And then taking inventory of those feelings and learning about ourselves rather than shaming ourselves when those feelings come up. Because by doing that, it shows yourself that you don't disappear on you when things get hard. And everybody wants to know that they're not going to be disappeared on when things get hard. So, how do we go about this? Because I think the really important thing to address is that we feel like we want to give in to those feelings. We want to live how we want. We don't want to burn ourselves out. We don't want to be so hard on ourselves that in an effort to be disciplined that we are just beating ourselves up and shaming and not feeling comfortable. Like we want to feel peace in our life. That's the number one goal, right? So how do we balance those two things? The first number one big thing is you have to stop confusing your feelings with the truth. It's a passing feeling that comes and goes, and it doesn't mean that it's the inevitable truth of your entire life. I think a big one that a lot of us experience is that when we don't like something, we think that instantly means that it's not in alignment with us, that it's not meant for us, that we should just pack up shop and leave because if we are feeling these feelings of discomfort and we don't like it, we don't like the thing, that means that it's not something we should be doing. It also can look like feeling entitled to express yourself with no regard for anybody else and their feelings and their thoughts, that you should be allowed to just, say whatever the fuck you want. And well, that's just me though, even though you could be being disrespectful or hurting the feelings of another person. Or another thing that like I was totally guilty of is twisting truths into excuses in order to justify to yourself why you're not following through on what you said that you were going to. Like saying things to yourself like, well, I need to be able to enjoy my life, or I'm not a machine. Like those things are true, but they're being twisted so that I can use it as an excuse to not do what I said I was going to. You have to respect your commitments more than you are worshiping the fuck out of your moods. And I just want to make it incredibly clear that this is not me giving you permission to suppress your emotions. It's just simply recognizing that emotions are temporary, they always pass. Resistance is a very normal part of growth, and your future self is worth inconvenience. Another huge way to balance the imperfection that comes with going to achieve goals and wanting to make sure that you're doing everything you can in order to achieve them is planning for that imperfection, allowing that imperfection to be a part of what it is that you are executing. We don't plan for that fantasy version of us. Like, stop planning for the fantasy version of you. Stop planning for the perfect walk on water version of you that you're picturing in your head and start planning for the real you, the you that you know. You know your habits, you know where you fuck up, you know what times you can do things and what causes you to get lazy and what periods of your life you are in more lulls than others. You know what you can't say no to, you know what you struggle with. You know you. If you get honest with yourself and you sit back and you think about it, and that's the you that you have to plan for. You have to plan for bad days. You have to incorporate flexibility for when you start to feel lazier. You have to assume that you will fuck up, that you will skip at some point. It's just inevitable. And that doesn't make you any less deserving of the goal that you're going after. Let me give you an example. I used to work out 6 days a week. Without fail, I was always at the gym. And then I went through a really long period of time that I was just sporadically working out, doing shorter workouts. It just wasn't in my system anymore. I just wasn't really about it. And lately, I have been transitioning more into that mentality again. And I know though that I cannot jump into a gym routine that's 6 days a week and be mad at myself when I don't accomplish that. So I'm setting a lower goal of 4 days a week because I know that that's more sustainable for me. And it's not like I'm trying to achieve some like massive thing. I just want to be healthy and maybe have some body goals because like who cares about like it's fun, But when I set myself up for 4 days a week, it's a lot more achievable. And what else I know is that I know I lose motivation towards the middle end of the week. And if that happens, if I have plans, if something comes up, I have programmed in an extra day on Saturday that is optional, that is a makeup day. So I have that scheduled into my program already. So if I can get all 4 days in during the week, like I hopefully will, like my plan is, great. I don't have to work out the whole weekend. But if that doesn't happen, I have to be able to be disciplined with myself enough to say, I have to execute on my makeup day. Another example of this that's more mental is having to constantly remind myself that I'm not going to say or do the right thing 100% of the time. There are going to be times that I say or do something that I embarrass myself or that feel vulnerable or that somebody might not like. And that is just life. I can't expect to get everything perfect 100% of the time. All I know is I can try my best and show up as my best as often as possible, or all of the time, I would argue, knowing that your best fluctuates. It can look different from day to day, but always doing my best and knowing that that is enough. It's creating these minimum standards with yourself and creating repair plans for yourself so that you are taking into consideration the reality of what it will be like to live with your goal in mind so you can incorporate it into your life in a realistic, sustainable, life changing way. And when imperfection is intertwined in your plan, it stops feeling like a crisis when it happens. A huge thing that you have to do to maintain the balance between you executing your goals and you feeling your feelings in order to build self trust is the level of self compassion that you're executing and self evaluation. Another huge thing that you have to do in order to maintain the balance between executing your goals and feeling your feelings and potentially giving in to imperfection in order to maintain self trust is maintaining the practice of self compassion and self evaluation. It is crucial that you have your own back when you fuck up compared to shaming yourself and guilting yourself and beating yourself up. Have your own back even to the point of delusion. You are your own friend. At the end of the day, the only person that will always be there for you is you. The only person that knows everything that you've experienced, that knows everything like you know it, is you, babe. Have your own back, even if it's to a level of delusion. You know that I'm not telling you to be an asshole. You know that I'm not telling you to be a bad person and have your own back, and that means that everything's okay. We're good people here, this Wellish family that we have. We are not saying that it's anything like that. It's just that you have to have your own back. Delusionally, like if you do something wrong, you have to say, I was operating with what knowledge I had at that time. I did my best at that moment. Maybe it wasn't my best. Maybe I could have done better, but you are okay. You are okay. We have each other's back. We have each other. We don't need anybody else. I believe in you. I know you weren't trying to be a dick, whatever. This is a but this is a two-part thing. This is why we're not just being assholes by being delusionally self-compassionate, because we have to self-evaluate as well. We have to take accountability for where we have made mistakes in order to improve and grow. You have to be honest with yourself about why it happened so you can adjust accordingly. I didn't wake up to go to the gym because I spent the whole night before drinking, and I know that that's not in alignment with how I want to be. So I need to be honest with myself that that's something that I struggle saying no to and need to find a better way to balance it in my life. Accountability, adjust accordingly. Compassion and responsibility create growth, where shame and punishment create quitting and failure. You also have to set boundaries with yourself, and you are the easiest and hardest person to set boundaries with. It is one of the best forms of self respect, but it takes so much strength. It's you setting rules because you care about who you are. Setting boundaries with yourself does sound a little insane, okay? But we're insane over here, all right? We have full conversations with ourselves. Live with ourselves inside of our body, and we have to have conversations with ourselves. And if you think that's nuts, go somewhere else, because out here we're a little nuts, okay? So what does setting boundaries with yourself actually look like? It looks like saying, this is a non-negotiable for me, even when I don't feel like it. It's saying scrolling is not an option for us right now. It's saying we do not talk to ourselves like we're pathetic. You cannot talk to me like that. I say that out loud. Again, sounds insane. I say that out loud to myself all of the time. Like, I will be saying mean things, and then I literally out loud will be like, stop talking to me like that. Stop talking to me like that. Setting a boundary. You could say, like, we're just going to take care of it now. Even though you don't feel like it, we're just going to take care of it now while we're thinking about it so that you don't have to worry about it later. I was sitting on the couch the other night and I was spiraling about who knows what. And I was trying to watch something, and I was literally just like, I literally like started like rubbing my leg and was just like, hey, can we just lay here? Would it be all right if just for tonight we just laid here and watched this, and we don't have to, spend time like this inside of our head? And I swear to God, it worked. It's setting these boundaries with ourselves. It's cool. And the energy isn't like, do this thing, otherwise you're worthless. It's very much, I love you too much to let you continue to live like this, to let you be mean to me. Relevant to the goals, to let you abandon your future. I love you too much to let you abandon what you want to create for yourself. The cycle of self-trust looks like this. Set a goal with realistic expectations, show up imperfectly, feel resistance and discomfort, don't panic, accept it, know that it's part of the process, practice compassion, evaluate honestly, adjust the system, and try the fuck again. The more you repeat, the more your identity within said goal strengthens. Let's talk about the meat and potatoes, the main thing that we came here to figure out. How do you build the life you want without executing your goal perfectly? You not being able to reach your goals thus far or in general has nothing, zero, zilch to do with your capability skills. And it has everything to do with the image in your head not aligning with the image in real life. When your real life doesn't look like the perfectly unflawed, effortless version that happens in your head, we think that something is going wrong, that the dream isn't working out, that it's no longer possible. So here's how to follow through while still being human. Separate the life you want from the conditions you think that you need. There is no more attaching your dream to this perfect storyline. Knock that off. That's done. Decide what you want and build it through ownership, return, and self-trust. What do you mean by return? I mean trading the fantasy of the flawless execution for the skill of being able to return when you fuck up. Failure is not falling off. It's not coming back. The people we admire didn't get to where they got through perfection. They got there because things like that went wrong. And what did they do? They built the skill of bouncing back faster. They recommit faster. They repair faster. They get back to integrity faster. If you can start paying attention to the gap of time and shortening the gap of time it takes you to reconnect with what your goal is, that is where the secret sauce is, okay? Because you can do this with physical goals and you can do this with mental goals. If you fall off of your exercise routine, how long does it take you to jump back in? That's why, like, that's where the idea of like never miss twice comes from. If you can shorten that length of time as much as possible, instead of spending like the next 3 weeks wishing that you were at the gym, but you just don't fucking feel like going, that's the skill to build. That's where the discipline comes in. Or like if we're thinking about this from a mental standpoint, when I was like really unwell after my engagement had ended, I was thinking a lot about what is the time like when I would fall because it was very much growth isn't linear was the vibe that like I would have these periods that I was like totally fine and then all of a sudden I would fall into these pits of despair and being able to pay attention to how quickly I was able to bounce back from the pits of despair was where I could find solstice. It's where I could find growth and like I was getting better and that I could recognize my healing because that time between despair and happiness was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So you have to build the skill of returning to your goal. Focus your energy on lessening that window of time that it takes you to get back up on the horse compared to never falling off at all. Number three, build systems that expect imperfection. And when imperfection happens, be able to fall back on that system. The plan can't only work for your best self. It has to work for all versions of you. So have bare minimum plans. What is a bare minimum standard that you can consider a win that isn't maybe the full capacity of you executing your goal, but it is this bare minimum standard that you can still feel like, okay, I did that. Make the goal smaller and smaller and smaller so that you did something, so that you can say you did something, so that you can build the self trust to say, I still showed up for myself, even if it wasn't at the full capacity of your goal execution. It's knowing what counts for you as progress during a lull. Number four, anchor identity over motivation. We accomplish goals when we believe that the goals are who we are compared to relying on these motivational surges. When I started running, I've used this example in the past. If you're an active listener here, you've probably heard me say this before. I never identified as a runner. I very much was identified as a person who hated running. And then I started to run, and it was quite the transition for me to start to identify myself as a runner. And that is the only thing that has made it so that I run consistently now is knowing that I'm a runner, identifying as a runner. Motivation fluctuates, identity stabilizes behavior. It's not just living on a whim and doing whatever you want. It's saying, this is who I am, and this is how someone like me behaves, how someone like me shows up. You have to start behaving like the person you promised yourself that you were going to become, and then let the feelings catch up to you, not the other way around. Number five is being compassionate without being permissive. Being self compassionate keeps you locked into your goal, where being permissive enables bad behavior. And when you continue to engage in the bad behavior and give yourself permission to engage in the bad behavior, it keeps you stuck where you don't want to be. Follow through requires both tenderness with your humanity and firmness with your standards, with what it is you want to achieve. You have to balance the two. Number six, you have to hold yourself emotionally, not just behaviorally. You fall back into old habits and patterns, not because you're weak and unhealed. You fall back into them because they're comfortable, because you've already forged that path. They feel regular and safe for your nervous system. When you build a new life, discomfort shows up, fear shows up, grief for the old you shows up. Identity confusion shows up. The emotional discomfort is part of the growth. It's part of the success. It is not proof that you are failing. And number seven is stop restarting. You have to reconnect and continue. When you constantly are stopping and then feeling like you have to start again, I got to start this new program, I've got to start this new diet, I've got to start this new way of thinking, you're ending the storyline. Continue the storyline. Allow yourself to view your progress as a continuous progress, a continuous storyline, even where there's holes in it. Even when you have these low moments, you just reconnect back with the you that wants to accomplish that goal and tune back in, lock back in, and go back after it. All right, my Wellish besties, that is it for today's episode. I hope you feel more capable of setting some realistic expectations for yourself when you set out to achieve your goals that you are fully capable of achieving in this new year. Some exciting things to look forward to. I briefly mentioned at the beginning that I am trying to post 3 episodes a week. We're going to have our regular Monday episode, like we're talking about today. Wednesdays, I'm going to be posting any interviews that I do. And then Fridays, I thought we could do some like fun little Wellish shorts moments. So just a couple other fun things to look forward to. They're not going to likely be as consistent as our Monday episodes. Our Monday episodes are really like where it's at, but you have those things in your wheelhouse to look forward to. And hopefully your girl can get better at it, but I'm not expecting perfection out here, which is why I'm just being open and honest about it. Some other exciting things, you should check out Wellish's Instagram at Wellish Podcast. There you'll find I'm going to start posting book recommendations for self-improvement books. I'm doing daily journaling prompts for you to use at your leisure, and I've created highlights for all of these things that you can come back and access them and use them at your will. I also will start posting question boxes once a week that you can submit your questions to relevant to Monday's episode, so I can make sure that I am answering your questions to the best of my ability. And then I'm thinking once a month we can do an actual Q&A that I will pull those questions directly and answer them. So make sure to follow for all of those exciting new things. We have an interview coming up on Wednesday, so we have that to look forward to. But other than that, I wish you the very, very best 2026. I know you are so incredible and you are so capable of achieving everything that you want to achieve. I love you endlessly, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.